Tomb Raider is a series about exploration, adventure, and action, starring everyone's favorite Tomb Raider, Lara Croft. However, past the traps and puzzles lie stories that explain how poor Miss Croft got wrapped up in one scheme to save the world or another. So join me today as we rank each and every one of Lara Croft's world-spanning adventures and see which crashed and burned, and which ones climbed right to the top of the pyramid. And so, I'm happy to present every Tomb Raider story from best to worst, ranked. Coming in last place, unfortunately, is the fifth game of the series, Tomb Raider Chronicles. Now, I'm not trying to be harsh on poor Chronicles. However, the game really suffers from not having a cohesive, singular narrative unlike any of the other games. It is instead a collection of individual stories told by Lara's old friends and acquaintances during her day of her funeral. Some of the smaller stories are interesting, such as expanding on the relationship between Lara Croft and Von Croy in the game's final chapters, but still, it just isn't racing on the same track as the other games, hence its bottom tier placement. Marking the first real entry on the list, we have at 5th place, Tomb Raider 2's story. Now this may be a hot take, especially to Bartoli's Hideout fans, but I've never found this story to be particularly engaging. The hook is good, with the intro cinematic introducing us to a magical dagger that can turn anyone into a fearsome and mighty dragon. But the actual artifact, the dagger Jian, is not exactly brought into the forefront again, and instead the story relies on Lara Croft's hunting of the artifact and the race against cult leader Marco Bartoli and his cult. Marco Bartoli is a figure that we never really get to see up close and is only alluded to by his mostly identical henchmen. And what is worse is that during the final confrontation, we never get to hear from the man himself. He just turns into a dragon and is gunned down by Lara immediately after. It's not an unenjoyable story to play, but it really isn't much of a story at all. And I think it is just the weakest story of any of the traditional Tomb Raider games. Coming in at number 4 is the original Tomb Raider. And this is not to disparage the game, it is light years ahead of Tomb Raider Chronicles and Tomb Raider 2, as it favors simplicity told well. The story revolves around Lara Croft being contacted by a mysterious business tycoon, Jacqueline Natla, and is tasked with finding the mysterious Scion of Atlantis. However, it soon becomes clear that there is more than meets the eye in the case of the Scion, as it reveals an ancient conspiracy of the old Queen of Atlantis, culminating in a final standoff with Natla atop her pyramid. It is a perfect example that less is more, letting the story be carried by character interaction, a handful of cutscenes, and letting the player piece everything together. A benchmark for later stories to come. As the only game whose release order matches its ranking, in number 3 we have Tomb Raider 3. Tomb Raider 3 was really the first game to try and truly make Lara Croft's adventure into a globe-trotting expedition to the far corners of the Earth, from the arid deserts of Nevada to the abandoned subway tunnels of London and the frigid waters of the Antarctic. As for the story itself, what I like about it is Lara is only accidentally involved in the story, as she's been exploring on her own when she comes across a raving madman in the jungle, and events only get more mysterious when another explorer tries to kill her, empowered by a mysterious artifact called the Infada artifact. This is when Lara meets Dr. Willard, and we learn more about these artifacts made from an ancient meteor whose pieces were secreted away by the crew of Charles Darwin. It is easily the second best plot hook in the classic lineup, and it all ends when Willard reveals himself to be a traitor. It becomes a horrific spider monster that Lara must put down. A fantastic story that dwarfs the stories before it. I think this is another entry that might be controversial, but taking the silver medal, we have the Angel of Darkness. Now, the Angel of Darkness has the best plot hook in the series, as during a shadowy and heated nighttime meeting with Von Croy, Lara's old mentor and rival, things take a turn for the worst and Von Croy lies dead at Lara's feet, his blood on her hands. Now pursued by the police as a wanted woman, Lara travels the world in search of the real killers, in what becomes a tale of literal biblical proportions, featuring an ancient cult, the half-angelic race known as the Nephilim, and one of the most intimidating and cruel villains in the series in Pieter von Eckhart, and a dour and melancholic ending that, in retrospect, perfectly symbolizes that this is the last outing of classic Croft. It is a dramatic murder mystery and whodunit, sending Lara into the path of shifty characters everywhere she turns that works shockingly well in a Tomb Raider game. However, what keeps it from being my number one is two big issues. The first has to do with the game's villains. Sure, Eckhart is a great, intimidating villain, however, he is completely undercut at the end when it is revealed that he himself is another pawn to another villain we have barely met and have no investment in. Secondly, the character of Curtis Trent, who is, in my opinion, nothing more than a handsy creep who feels up Lara Croft, and an underdeveloped side character who I do not think added enough to the game that justified his inclusion, and I never believed that they sold the sort of relationship between Lara and Trent they tried to imply. Still, despite these complaints, the Angel of Darkness' story will forever be the crowning achievement of an otherwise flawed game. Coming in for the gold medal, we have Tomb Raider Revelation. This story is by far and away the most personal to Lara Croft as a character. Where in other stories she is forced into the events unwillingly, here we get to see her earliest days learning to become a Tomb Raider with her mentor, Werner van Croy. And we see how that relationship falls apart because of his own, failings as a raider, making way for their rivalry later in life. Their complicated relationship makes a turn when the Egyptian god of the dead Set is released onto the world and takes over the body of Van Croy, leading Lara to have to try and save not just the world, but also an old friend. Revelations has by far the most interaction between Lara and our villain, as she and Set run into each other time and again, with the god either threatening Lara or attempting to bring her onto his side with offers of power over life and death. Tomb Raider Revelations ends with a bang, seeing Lara either seal away Set or even destroy the god of the dead himself, before rushing to escape the crumbling tomb. The final cutscene sees Van Croy trying to put their differences aside one last time as he desperately tries to save her, but Lara is simply too late and we're left on the cliffhanger of Croft's ultimate fate. A strong story, one that connects to Lara Croft as a character. I see no reason not to put Tomb Raider The Last Revelation as the first place as the best story in the classic Tomb Raider series. But of course, that's just my opinion. What's your favorite and least favorite Tomb Raider story? Let me know down in the comments below, but until then, you know how I leave you. Be safe, be wise, and please pray for a true peace in space. Take care.